how long does tirzepatide take to start working? Well, trial data reveals that tirzepatide can drop blood sugar in 1 week, while skull movement lags maybe 4 weeks behind. So don't worry, in this video I'm going to talk to you about one of the SURMOUNT trials where they found that 5 to 8% of weight loss happened by week 20, and then it peaked by 21% by the year end across 2,500 participants. Joint pain, this is interesting because joint pain models predict relief hits once about 10% of body weight is gone, and that usually takes 12 to 16 weeks. I'm also going to show you how you can master tirzepatide's activation timeline to stack blood sugar control, melt your fat, and then get rid of joint pain. So let's talk about this process of how long it takes to work. I'm Regan Archibald. I'm the founder of Ageless Future. We have a physician-led peptide programs that are all based on building an operating system for you. We look at peptides as signaling molecules that allow you to install and update the software in your body, in your biology. When you get these updates, now your biology has better signals, and then you pulse and cycle the peptides. So if you want to go deeper, the very first place you want to start is get your blood labs ran, go to agelessfuture.com, and my team will take care of you there. So let's talk about tirzepatide. So, how does your body handle sugar? Some of you, it's a subtle shift, it's a whisper of momentum that signals the start of a longer journey, in this first injection, but then as you move into week 2, now you're starting to see that it's a touch more defined, and it gives you a sense that the process is underway. Even if the scale isn't moving, you know that you don't have the same level of hunger, and it's this emancipation from the food noise, the food boogeyman or whatever. But there's not some single dramatic moment, because you'll still have days of the week where you may be hungrier. The reason is you need more protein and better sleep. So make sure you've got your essentials dialed in before you even start this. So what comes next is where you lay the groundwork for the downstream effects. And we're going to explore what happens, throughout the weeks and months when you start on tirzepatide. So early period notes that fasting glucose, when you first start, it's dropping within the first week, indicating that there's this initial metabolic shift. And then you'll start to see with the GLP-1 and the GIP, remember that's what tirzepatide is a co-agonist. It works beautifully because it helps bring sugar into the cell so it can be used as energy. And so when you see this early change in glycemic control, this proceeds with noticeable weight changes, and then it establishes the sequence that sets up for later improvements in fat loss and joint comfort. And so this narrative emphasizes this progression and sequence, focusing on timing rather than rapid one-off results. So you don't want appetite suppression. This is not just appetite suppression. Yes, you're going to have a delaying in gastric emptying, but if you look at the studies, it's really fascinating because people are losing weight, but it takes longer than a lot of people think. And so this weight loss wave, 4 weeks to 72-week peak is what we see. It's about 72 weeks. So around month 1, your body begins to show noticeable changes in weight. And that, when I say noticeable, that could be like 5 pounds. That's the average. And then this momentum continues with typical trajectories showing, where you've got 5 to 10% of weight loss by like week 12. And so if you're 200 pounds, you may see somewhere between, anywhere from, 10 to 20 pounds of weight loss just in that first 90 to 120 days. And then you see further reduction extending through weeks 36 to 72, depending on your dose and adherence. And so what now happens is, you're using tirzepatide. We have you cycle off of it. You take breaks about every 90 days. You cycle off for anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, depending on what your provider decides is best for you. And then we're using other peptides, BPC 157 to protect your stomach, KPV. We're also using peptides to enhance muscle building, maybe a myostatin inhibitor. We may also use a growth hormone releasing peptide like tesamorelin or CJC. These are all phenomenal because We want to maximize not just weight loss, but body composition and overall health. And so, my dad used to say, well, he still does, anything worth doing is worth doing well. And so when it comes to weight loss, like, why lose it multiple times? Let's just get it off for good. Where early gains build into more substantial losses over time, the key takeaway is that patience pays off in the long run, with many individuals achieving like very meaningful weight reductions across the trial horizon. And so the evidence also supports longer term trends rather than this quick dramatic swing, reinforcing this gradual, sustainable path. One of the SURMOUNT data shows that 90% of slow starters hit just under 5% weight loss by 72 weeks. And it's a very tiny subset of these groups. A substantial portion of participants who didn't respond quickly still reached meaningful weight loss by later time points. And that underscored the value of perseverance and consistent treatments over months. This detail helps you understand that early results don't determine long-term outcomes. Some people just plateau. One of our patients, she just reached out and she's like, I've only lost 10 pounds, and she's all frustrated. But when we actually dove into it, we realized that she wasn't eating breakfast. And just by adding in breakfast, her weight dramatically changed, 10 pounds within the first week, because now her metabolic engine could turn on. I've got a great video on how Tirzepatide impacts female hormones. So dudes, share this with your lady, and ladies, go watch that video on does Tirzepatide impact hormones? I talk about birth control, thyroid function, the whole thing. Okay, the other interesting thing about how long it takes Tirzepatide to work, what about for joint pain? Now, I know the TRIUMPH-4 study just came out with retatrutide, and I'm so excited about that because 76, maybe 78% of participants, they had a massive reduction in joint pain, whereas 18% of them had a complete resolution of joint pain. So what is driving this? I remember in my office, I had this amazing client. He works at the hospital. He's an anesthesiologist, but we always compare notes on studies, and he's very into peptides. I keep telling him, we're going to get you out of the hospital system, put an Ageless Future Center. And so you know who you are, but he shared with me this article on joint improvement, New England Journal of Medicine. I believe it was published in 2023, but showing the proteases in osteoarthritis are diminished when you use Tirzepatide. Now that's amazing. So that's retatrutide. One of the things, Eli Lilly, one of the conditions is they're looking at using it for osteoarthritis. So they got three conditions that they're looking for FDA approval for this year. This is 2026, but maybe mid-2026. One of those conditions is sleep apnea. Seems to help with sleep apnea. Second condition is obesity. Not a shocker, because in their TRIUMPH-4 study, they had a 28% loss of total body weight, which was the equivalent of 71 pounds over 48 weeks. And then the third one is, pain, osteoarthritic knees. So when you think about, the weight reduction, yes, it takes pressure off the knees, but there's more going on with this beautiful molecule that stops the progression of tumor necrosis factor alpha, IL-6, and a lot of those pathways that drive arthritis and drive pain. And so when you think of this reduction in pain, it's happening because you're lowering inflammatory levels in your body. And that's one of the beautiful things about this. And when you're eating less sugar, sugar drives arthritis probably more so than anything. And so now that you've turned off the food noise, you're eating less sugar, you're exercising more. Ideally, you're working with a team who's got very specific detoxification protocols, especially the first 60 days. You've got to get rid of the toxins in your body. Otherwise, your liver is going to get overwhelmed, your pancreas will shut down, that gastric emptying gets paused, and that can be deadly. And so to avoid the side effects, you want to think of the whole body. And this is where Ageless Future comes in. So Tirzepatide, how long does it take to work? Well, appetite suppression, you're going to see it within the first couple of weeks, depending on the dose. Blood sugar control, you'll see an improvement within the first week. When it comes to pain, usually it takes about 4 to 16 weeks. So overall, it's something that you want to stick with in the long run. You want to cycle on, cycle off this. It's not something you want to stay on your entire life. On the higher doses, you want to get down to the lowest dose you possibly can that changes your metabolic function and helps you look, feel, and perform your best at any age. I'm Regan Archibald. Appreciate being on the channel. For those of you who want to get your blood work ran with us and go deeper in your health, go to agelessfuture.com. My team there can help you get everything set up. See you on the next video.